What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of pldViews. I am PLD, Paul DeNuzio, and you're on the PLD Projects YouTube channel. Thank you for showing up. This show is about the sci-fi franchise V from the 1980s, an episode in a series that I really loved. Well, I love the original miniseries, love the Final Battle, the Final Battle, the follow-up miniseries, and the guilty pleasure of the weekly series. Let's put it that way, amongst everything else in the franchise. You've seen me so far. We're down into the weekly series so far, reviewing each episode as I watch them again. I'm watching them on a weekly basis. I'm once going to also talk about some of the major characters in the franchise. It's a little bit of informational piece. I know it's a little bit niche viewing. I don't see many shows about V out there. The other show I do is a Star Wars show, and there's a billion Star Wars shows out there. So I'm going to find my little niche by doing V instead, one of the other things. I might do some other things at some point. I might decide to do a recast since creator Kenneth Johnson is working towards a movie of V, a remake followed up by a sequel. It's going to be a fun time to have that. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. It's right where we left off. We left off at the episode 3 of the weekly series from 1985. That episode was entitled Breakout, written by David Braff, directed by Ray Austin. This original episode was actually released out of order. It's an interesting note before we get into it. I'll say that the NBC initially rejected this due to the violence of it, which is kind of interesting because I'm watching it now. I mean, again, this is the 80s. It's not that much violence in any of the other episodes, so I'm not certain what the issue was, but it did cause some interesting snafus as far as the differences in the consistency of the episode and the canon of the episode, so to speak, of what was going on, which we'll get into as I get further into the review. The first part I'll talk about, just a quick summary of it. Donovan and Ham Tyler, resistance fighters, heading up north of Los Angeles to go find Donovan's son, Sean. Now, if you remember, Sean Donovan was last seen in V, the Final Battle. He was converted by Diana, turned into a spy, brainwashed the kid. And he was mentioned in the weekly episode, in the first of the weekly series. Donovan mentioned he sent him up to this rehab center, that he was worried that Sean was not going to be taken to rehab well. And of course, the visitors came back, so all hell broke loose. The reason why Donovan wants to get out there where the visitors are more active, get his son back and bring him to LA. Becomes kind of a running segment of the show. Donovan and Sean trying to get back together, or Donovan trying to get Sean back, rather. But they go up to this place called Ojai, which is north of LA, and they try to break Sean out, but unfortunately they get captured. They spend the time in the prison camp in V, and the visitors prison camp for humans that are working in and around the area. It's an interesting time. We'll get into that more. The other subplot is we're down back in Los Angeles. Julie, of course, the other resistance leaders, working with Nathan Bates, kind of spying on him, but kind of also working hopefully towards a way to get the visitors back off the earth. But Diana and Nathan Bates have this working relationship as well, as Nathan tries to keep it an open city, but really he's really doing it more for his own gain, his own financial gain. Very similar to some society today, a business leader is in charge of the city, like is in charge of the country. Just a little dynamic there. Some things art imitates life sometimes. And because of the plot does intertwine a little bit, because in this camp, Kyle Bates is one of the prisoners. Kyle is Nathan's son, so we get to meet Kyle Bates for the first time, played by Jeff Yeager. And Diana tries to levy that into Nathan, helping her find Elizabeth. Diana wants to start Sean back. I mean, wouldn't you, after saw the powers she displayed in the Final Battle? She totally took over and stopped the nuclear bomb just by going all Jedi. But some kind of interesting medical thing they want to talk about Elizabeth's background, perhaps maybe she would be the key to helping the visitors develop some kind of antitoxin, or maybe something to help them on their side of things. But going back to now the violence, so it's out of order. The continuity gets broken here because for the first time, Kyle Bates, then they said, no, you can't have this. So we had to re-meet Kyle Bates in the next episode. So 2 episodes in a row, you get to meet Kyle Bates. There's definitely even some similar dialogue. So it kind of becomes, when you rewatch it in order, it kind of becomes a little bit weird, a little bit funky. Another thing is at the end of the episode, Robin Maxwell, who we remember if you saw the end of the last episode, she was running away from a roadblock. Well, sometime during that between episodes, she was also picked up, and she's also in this camp. So you have Donovan and Ham, you have Kyle Bates, and you have Robin Maxwell, all in the same camp. Kind of coincidental, huh? But at the end, after the escape, which we'll get into, they get split up again somehow, and Robin is almost as if she never went to the camp. You open the next episode, she's out there wandering as if she had just broken free from the car. So I don't know why, if they decided that they wanted to do it this way, why they bothered to re-release it later on. It's almost like an alternate storyline kind of in a way. But I guess in the 80s, they don't really cared much about continuity as we do these days. But analysis now, just analysis and reviewing the episode. Where are we at this point? I've already said many times that the miniseries, the original miniseries of greatness, was a classic television show, one of the best I've ever seen. The final battle delineates a little bit to the sci-fi aspect, more of the action aspect. Not quite as a good film, but still a fun adventure sci-fi classic. The weekly series, as I said, it does start getting a little more repetitive. It starts getting a little more sold out. They cheapen things up. It's still the most expensive thing on TV. That's probably part of the problem. They have to find a way to cut corners, and it starts becoming more and more obvious and becomes more and more cheesy. And the writers, I would say that the best thing I can say about the weekly series is that they have a lot of good intentions, a lot of things that work on paper, a lot of interesting ideas, and just how they're executed is not the same. It doesn't work very well, unfortunately. And we get into that here. So the first basis, I said Donovan and Ham were up in Ojai, north of Los Angeles. And we're led to believe that this is a war-torn area. Everything outside of LA. LA is the open city where visitors and humans can walk free. Everything else is supposed to be where the visitors are. It's supposed to be a war-torn country. Now, where it's cold, like New York, Chicago, the red dust is still working at this point. That's what we know. But this seems like much more the same. It actually seems like LA. Donovan and Ham are out. Visitors are around with lasers, and it's a little more intense possibly, but I expect a little more war-torn at this point. Now we meet some resistance. One young woman who's a resistance fighter, and a mother who is not. It's not shades of the old dynamic they had with the Bernsteins in episode and during the final battle. During the original miniseries, where we have one who's a visitor sympathizer or someone who's just trying to live, and there's someone who's a resistance fighter and wants to fight off what's going on. Very small shades, but it's there. It sets up the story nice. Donovan, of course, tries to save a kid that gets attacked by the visitors after spray painting a V on a V truck. Yes, a V truck. I love that. As you go on, it becomes less and less sci-fi based, and all of a sudden the visitors are driving around, white Dodge trucks, and driving around motorcycles. They just put little symbols on them, and all of a sudden that's the alien transportation. So anything that's actually sci-fi, I guess the way to cut costs, right? Another way to cut costs is no more laser blasts, at least from the resistance side. They keep the visitors side, but the resistance all of a sudden gets rid of all their laser guns, and now they have the regular guns that are probably a lot less expensive to make happen on TV. But we have they get into this prison camp where it's surrounded by crivets. Well, what's a crivet? Basically, it's a sand shark. They surround the camp with sand, and every time somebody walks on it, maybe there's a little sound, and it's like sand shark comes up and takes a human down, eats them right to the ground. It's really kind of, I guess that could be the thing that might have taken them out. Although they don't really show any guts or anything. It's just kind of the guy sinks to the ground screaming. But it's kind of cool. That's one of the things I did like about this episode, is the introduction of something like a visitor creature, another alien creature. So something we didn't know about before. And it kind of makes kind of cool sense that lizards would have a sand shark. It kind of makes kind of cool sense to me, at least. But the prison camp aspect seems a little strange, because they have these random parts where they're having the human build something. They don't ever say what they're building. They're just making concrete and they're making foundations, and I don't know if it's just busy work, but why are they bothering? Well, they showed the final battle of the original miniseries. They take humans up, they bring them up, they put them in the little pods, and they're going to be saved for dinner, for Christmas dinner, so to speak. But that's not what happens here. So I don't know what they're doing. Like, why is this? Seems to be they needed it to happen for what they wanted. So that's what it is. And secondary at this point, when you have resistance leaders like Donovan and Ham, these are, they're already said they're on the visitors' most wanted list, and no one seems to recognize them. It's kind of like saying you have like Osama bin Laden coming into your camp and you don't recognize them. It just seems like out of place. The visitors they have all this technology, all these pictures, everything, and you don't recognize them. That seems kind of weird to me, but whatever. We'll take that into account. Having Robin in there is nice to have them finally reunited. Donovan gets to tell Robin about Robert, which is a nice touching moment. Robin's father dying during the last episode. Doesn't get a chance to tell him about Elizabeth. Things go too quickly, as it says. But we get introduced to Kyle Bates, and I want to talk about Kyle Bates for a minute. Definitely one of the best introductions of the one of the best things about the series so far, because they've been developing the Nathan Bates character as a sympathizer to the visitors, basically selfish, like I said before, working with Diana, but basically for his own gain. But Kyle ends up being a nice, definitely twists the story, because you have Kyle who's doesn't get along with his father. It's made quite clear pretty soon on that they're estranged, but Nathan really wants to have a relationship with him. You can tell right away Kyle's going to eventually join the resistance. That's the story that makes sense. Hesitant at first, seems like he just wants to, young kid wants to live life and not worry about anything else. You know what I'm saying? But he's played very well by Jeff Yeager. It's an interesting introduction to that character. We get a nice part of the end after the breakout from the camp. Kyle and Nathan have a nice little father-son interaction where it's obvious that Kyle and Nathan are going to be estranged. That's going to be a focal point of the story. But that's all right. The other part of the story, it has to do with Elizabeth a lot, and that's one of my main problems with the story in general for the series. A lot of focus on Elizabeth. I get it to a degree, but that was one of my least favorite aspects of the final battle. The Jedi powers and everything else, and this whole religion aspect they put on her, the Mark of Zahn, the visitor religion. Again, I'll say I like the idea of it, but just the way it happened just made it sound cheesy and sci-fi, like more sci-fi and less realistic, which is what the original miniseries did so well. Mark out, of course, later on I'll talk about the powers again. But Elizabeth is in the Club Creole, Elias's club, and there's an idea of trying to keep her safe. And there's some issues with that. Some visitors recognize the sign just like Willie did. There's some interesting go-arounds there. But Elizabeth, of course, is a 2-year-old, about a year-old, 2-year-old in at this point, like 17, 18-year-old girl body. So, of course, it's going to make for some interesting storylines. It does later on as we get there, but not quite yet. It's an okay episode overall. I did like part of it. Like the concept of it. There's some fun action sequences. The breakout was kind of a fun sequence. But overall, it was just an okay episode. Nothing great, nothing gained, nothing lost, really. I'd give it a solid B-. But the interesting things I will bring up, the interesting things I do want to bring up that are specifically to this episode, this was the first time we get Howard K. Smith, who was a famous newscaster at the time, news anchor, man, reporter. They have these segments at the beginning of every episode now, at this point, where it's called the World Liberation Front News Report. It opens up. Every episode will open up with a news report, just like you're seeing a breaking news story. And Howard K. Smith will talk about some part of the land that is fighting back. And some news reports about, battles in Texas, battles in Chicago, or not Chicago, because Chicago is still a free country at this point, or a free land at this point. But it gives the stories around the country. It's a nice little tidbit of the world at large at this point that war was fighting against. Because Donovan and company in Los Angeles, what we're based on, so we get to see little tidbits of what's going on around the country, and they give a freedom of valor award every week. They specify one resistance member and give their story. It's a nice little touch. I kind of liked it. To be honest, it's one of my favorite parts about the weekly series. Is that it was a nice little touch. Some people say, "What does it matter? Is anything the plot?" But I think it's a nice little bit of world building. And I could have been, if they had gone on for a couple of seasons, you could have seen that become more of a thing and maybe interact with some of those people and be characters later on down the line. I like the idea. Again, I like the idea of where it could have gone. Didn't go anywhere, though, because of everything else that went down. But I also should make up in our stock footage count. I've done only one piece of stock footage this time. The Skyfighter fight from the original miniseries. Yes, we are 3 episodes into the weekly series. This is the second time that they're going to use the Skyfighter from the Skyfighter fight from the original miniseries. Donovan and Ham, they break out of the camp. They get to this lair where they're Skyfighters. Of course, that's how they fly back to Los Angeles, right? But of course, it's the same fight. You're going to see as many times. I don't know how many times I want to find out. Just want to say hi in the chat, PC, and Richard Eric Jarvis, my brother from Class Action, the Action Industries YouTube channel. Thanks, guys. I am going live for the first time in this because honestly, I don't do a lot of editing for my videos. I figure, you know what? So why do I just record it, download it, upload it? Just go live. Fuck it. What the hell? You know what I mean? Good to see you, though, driving to see your PC as well. So that's where I am with the stock footage and Howard K. Smith. The one last thing I will talk about from this episode, we'll mention Elizabeth's new powers. Every episode seems Elizabeth gets new powers, and they have no freaking idea. Like, it's just, there's no rhyme or reason behind them. There's one thing to have the Jedi powers, and she stops the nuclear bomb in the final battle. But this week we have that she becomes a master instrumentalist. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, no studies, no lessons. She just sits down and plays the piano like she has been doing it for years. It makes no sense. That's just a way to go, oh, wow, it's Elizabeth. She's so cool. And the other section we have, some visitors note her, like Willie did, and they want to take her hostage, take her captured. She runs away, goes into the alley, and she meets up with these visitors. And then in this truck next to her, these pack of dogs, or 2 dogs really, they're mean and they're growling. Visitors start coming after Elizabeth. Elizabeth looks to her, get the famous music that goes on every time. It says, oh. Sure enough, the dogs come and rip the visitors' throats out. So all of a sudden, now she can talk to animals, I guess, and she can have mastery over animals, because anything that we need Elizabeth to do, she's going to be able to do. And yes, Jeremy from Estonia, I am living on your schedule at this point. This is my class action now. Actually, this is where we record class actions. I just come home, I record these. I've had my Star Wars show so far, amongst the other shows I'm going to do. But anyway, that will be the end of my episode of feedback from Liberation Day. I'm sorry, not Liberation Day, Breakout. I got to change the title of this video because it's actually Breakout's the name of this episode. Liberation Day was the last episode. But quickly, I'll go through this. I have a couple pictures from the episode we'll look at. Of course, that's the complete series. This is the scene in the beginning where Donovan and Ham are caught, obviously by the guards. I love Michael Ironside so much. His face is 1,000 words. He got some of the best facial expressions in the biz, especially during these episodes. A couple other times where he has some cynical grins when he has these sort of fight in the camp that some people are pissing him off, and then he has to happen to fight them to create a diversion. So he takes great pleasure in that. Marc Singer tends to do a good bit of overacting sometimes, but I love it. I mean, it's not like William Shatner overacting, but there's definitely some moments where you're like, but it's fun overacting. We've seen him in Beastmaster. You know how he is. But he's a good actor. I actually really like his work. That's Jeff Yeager. That's Kyle Bates. Diana noticing that. I will bring up, that's another interesting about this episode. Diana just all of a sudden comes up out of blue. Well, Nathan has a son. He does these riding bikes. It's a potentially possibility that he is caught in one of our prison camps. Of course, it ends up being because the plot needs it. That's the one thing about the show. It just becomes a lot of convenience, and that's the problem with the show, really. This is the kid and Donovan tried to save, and when it got them caught in the first place, of course, he saves them. And the kid who won't talk all episode finally, gets to talk because Donovan gets through to him, and then Donovan with the big overacting. That's the end of that. That's the end of the episode. Like I said, an episode called Breakout. You'll now break through to the other side, and we'll talk about some characters. This time, like a good time. I've been doing some cleanup of the characters who are in the miniseries who are no longer in the series. So we're going to talk about the Bernsteins. I mentioned them earlier. The Bernsteins were a big part of the original miniseries, and Daniel, was a part of the final battle. And there he is right there. Daniel Bernstein is probably the most important of the Bernstein characters, portrayed by David Packer. He appeared, like I said, in the original and the final battle. He's a punk. He was a punk kid. He was always quitting all his jobs. Wasn't take care of PC. I'm glad you can check it later on. I appreciate the view, of course. But have a good day. I'll talk to you later on. David Packer, his character, he's a punk. He doesn't know what he's doing, but the visitors arrive at a good time for him as a part of the Nazi youth program. That's the visitors' friend, the allegory there. He joins up with the visitors and ends up becoming very high ranked because he's ambitious. He's not a great guy. He's just that guy that develops wrongly, unfortunately. He's got a good family, but for whatever reason, he's just a bad egg. Look at that smirk. Kind of an asshole. He gets the choice. He actually gets a chance, obviously, to redeem himself. He does a lot of screwed up things. He turns in the Maxwell family, or we're hiding at his house to gain an upper hand on. For some reason, he thinks that's going to make his love for Robin Maxwell. That's going to do good thing. It's an aphrodisiac, I guess. He's going to marry her now because he turns his family in. It's ridiculous. He's a ridiculous character. He doesn't get a chance to redeem himself, and unfortunately, he screws the pooch again in the final battle, which ends up leading to his own demise. And it's one of those characters that when he does meet his end, you're like, yes, about time, and it's a good end. It's a good, solid end for him. But he is great as far as you love to hate him. He's one of those characters you love to hate so much. And so he does his job well, very well. The rest of the Bernsteins, we have Abraham Bernstein. This is one of my favorite characters. He's only in the original miniseries. This is played by Leonardo Smino, also known from Monster Squad, I believe, is one of the characters in Monster Squad. He is one of the reasons, like I said, V has always been an allegory for World War II and the rise of the Nazi regime. But it's not very subtle, not very subtle at all. And right there tells you this is one of the guys, he's actually a survivor of the Holocaust. It's one of the ways they link it up without being subtle. But it makes for great emotional moments. The Bernsteins in general, the rest of the Bernstein family, they don't have a lot of screen time. But the screen time they do have is important. It's a good showing in the original miniseries. It's one of those important things that they did. They showed little segments of life, and they really used the airtime that they had. Stanley and his wife were very hesitant about letting the resistance stay at the house, as Maxwell staying at the house because of Daniel. And it's rightfully so. It's a scary time. But Abraham convinces them and has this great emotional monologue with his son, telling about how Stanley's mother, Abraham's wife, was in the Holocaust with them. And she did not make it out. And initially he had lied to Stanley about how she had a heart attack and the boxcar never made it to the camps. He reveals now that she did make it to the camps and did actually die, unfortunately, in the showers in the camps. But it's a very touching place, and it convinces Stanley to take a chance and to hide the Maxwells, and again later on to help the resistance. He unfortunately never makes it out of the original miniseries, as the users take the whole family prisoner. They arrest them temporarily, and you never hear from Abraham again. We do hear from Stanley and Lynn. Another fascinating, powerful segment. I'm going to show them both there. I'll talk about them both. Lynn and Stanley. Lynn is portrayed by Bonnie Bartlett, and then Stanley is portrayed by a gentleman named George Morfogen. They both appear in the original miniseries and the original novel. They are in the final battle, but it's very, very brief. It's only at the very end after the celebration. You see Stanley and Lynn, who actually might have been played by a different actress, because they're only for one shot. They look up and they see the balloons and they're celebrating. That's the only time they appear in the final battle at all. It's all about the original miniseries. The great part about this is they have this whole arc. They get arrested, and at the end of the original miniseries, Robert Maxwell comes back. It has this heartfelt story about Kathleen dying. He asks Stan and Lynn if they can use their house again, not long term, but as resistance to come hide every once in a while. And of course, Lynn's like, "What the fuck?" Basically, like, I got arrested. They burned his arm. Abraham never came back. Daniel's still around, and Robert counters that this is why they won't look there again. Lightning will strike twice. Lynn says no, and leaves this great touching monologue that Stanley has, where he takes out a letter written by Abraham, and he quotes the other monologue I had mentioned, the Abraham monologue at the end. This is a great line. I go, "We have to help, or else we won't have learned a thing." And it's a great moment. I love it so much. One of my favorite moments in the original miniseries. Both times it's said by Abraham and again by Stanley. So they're great. They're great characters. Again, minorly, they do exactly what they need to do. They make you hate the one, Daniel, and make you love and appreciate the others. Showcases how they are in this time of deed during the battles there. One other thing I will mention about Stanley is that in the original miniseries book, novelization, which is the original and the final battle in one novelization, they do bring Stanley a little bit more into the final battle, where he is shown helping resistance out a little bit further when Donovan and Martin parachute out of the mothership, escaping, die in its clutches. It's Stanley who gets them and brings them to the resistance base to reunite them with the rest of the resistance. Well, that is the episode today. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank PC and Richard Hard Drive for showing up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's a good time. We're going to go into next week. We'll go into the next episode. We got about 19 episodes plus the unfinished, unfilmed 20th episode, which I will get into as well, because I do have that script, and it's interesting showing on what would have happened if they had gotten renewed into season 2. Like I said, I'm going to do some other things here and there as well, trying to maybe do a recast. We'll see how that goes. But as for the channel, you see Saturday or Saturday morning, depending, I'll do my PLD 1138, my Star Wars show, which is going to be the last 2 shows I do of that for a while. I'm going to finish out reviewing the Clone Wars as the episodes drop. Hope you stay tuned for that. I do have some other things in development. Hopefully I'll get some news on those soon, some more live streams on Sunday night possibly. Maybe a series called Not That Bad. If you find the test stream I did the other day, about 3-hour test stream with me and some of my friends, you can hear a little bit more about that amongst the chaotic friendship banter. But I appreciate it. If you like, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to donate something, Streamlabs, streamlabs.com/PLD projects. I will read out your Streamlabs on the air during PLD 1138. Otherwise, that's it. You can find me at Paul_Denuzio. Let me know what you think, what you like, what you don't like, anything you want me to see me do on my channel. I'm always open to suggestions. But for now, pray to now, everybody.